Go ahead and call to order regular meeting of Seneca Healthcare District Board of Directors. All of our directors are here in person, which is wonderful. Let's go ahead and raise the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the states, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. That brings us to item 2, issuance, modifications, deletion, and agenda. Board members. Then we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Motion. Sherry, do I second? Thank you, Shelley. All in favor? Ken? Sherry? Shelley? Rich? And I'll vote aye. Okay, that moves us into our public comment period. There were no public comments submitted prior to the meeting. Anybody have any public comment to make here today?
To know, maybe the next meeting, depends on if they got my lab or to my doctor.
Sure. Anyone?
Nope, nobody hit the hand raise.
There was 5, approval of the August 12th, 24 special board meeting minutes. Questions, comments, anything you want to add? Okay, then I'll accept the motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ken. Second. Thank you, Sherry. Sherry. All in favor? Rich?
Aye.
Shelley? Sherry? Ken?
Aye.
And I'll vote. I'm so sorry. All right, next is the approval of our August 20th, 2024 minutes. I think Shelley, you were the absent, so you probably will say no this one, okay? Do you have any questions, comments?
Move approval.
Thank you, do I have a second? Thank you, all in favor, Ken?
Aye.
Sherry? Rich?
Aye.
Moves us on to item number 7, approval of the September 6th, 2024 special board meeting minutes. Questions, comments, motion? Approval. Thank you, do I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Rich?
Aye.
Shelley? Sherry? Ken?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. We did, that's all of this now, we get to go to our adoption. Sean?
Yeah, thank you. So moving forward this time, I'm getting down paper more and more, but for the report, so let's talk about. John is gonna go over. They're doing, they're moving they're really working the schedule. They are currently installing the sewer. And then there's a toss up between whether or not they're gonna do the fire water next or the electrical conduit. That depends on procurement of the conduit. So they're juggling to try to stay ahead of schedule, and the reason is that we're chasing winter. There are some things that will be discussed in our administration, obviously with some board awareness. There's gonna be some risk measures as we move into winter. Trying to put some of the internal footers in place before winter hits and get those in place. Some of the risks associated with that are going to be, can we do it when it's open? Can we pour these things without weather? So we're really watching everything as we go. It's a very dynamic process. Some of the other things that we are going to do is some early procurement, the steel, the rebar, some of the things that have a longer time to get here. We're going to be doing some of that. That's low risk stuff, really. But the pad, we won't get to the pad this year. The belief from the general contractor is we're just not going to get the pad poured. In that case, what we're doing is we're looking at options for an early spring start. In other words, maintaining the dirt pad without the concrete pad, but being able to start as early as possible, including potentially, we're looking at ideas of scraping snow and letting it melt faster so they can get to the pad faster. So I just want to share with you that the construction team is working very closely with the administration on a lot of this, just these questions and answers, and we're in the throes of construction, and this is what it's about, is trying to line things up in a way that shortens the timeline around the build. And they're giving us lots of great ideas. So
is there a risk of erosion over the winter?
It just passed its compaction test, it got certified for compaction. The general contractor doesn't believe so, but I believe that the state would want another compaction test after the winter, when the snow's been on it. And the geo guys don't believe that it's gonna affect dirt pad at all, because they're gonna do a roll test on it, which is get the biggest water truck they can and roll across to see if there's any compaction. And it is really well compacted. Some things that have come up on that, and I don't know if Don's gonna help on this later, but we're probably gonna have to bring some additional fill dirt in. We don't have enough from the dirt that's pulled from the footers and stuff like that. We don't seem to have enough. And the reason is that if you haven't looked at on the site, cobble. There is so much, rather than dirt, it's so much stone, which is good because our landscaping we were gonna pay for cobble. So I just, I don't know the differences between fill dirt and cobble, but boy, do we have cobble. It's like a riverbed out there.
I'm smiling because trying to dig a hole in my yard and you don't.
Oh, we got cobble tiles, and we're putting cobble all around the heliport or the helicopter landing spot. So we've got a lot of, so I'm gonna try to trade that off and see what the fill dirt is, but I can tell you so far, I'm very pleased with the progress. They are very engaged in getting this thing pushed through all the way to the winter when they've got to stop. The idea, of course, is to try to begin again as early as possible in spring. With
Is there
steel
any
breaking.
provisions, on the off chance that some mild winter to push forward, or is there a cutoff date where we're just not gonna chance that?
Donna can speak to it probably a little bit more in her report, but I think that, the flavor of the contractor is I'm gonna push as hard as I can without impacting what we do with winter, and then we are gonna start as early as possible. And if we have a mild winter, earlier, whatever, so they're looking at it, they're taking a look. So I'm personally very, very pleased with the superintendent, Rod, and everybody. They're keeping things moving. And this first phase is really, really moving right along.
Question for you,
Yeah.
before we move on from the pad. If we don't pour the concrete, which if we shouldn't, because we don't wanna
Right.
risk any issue there. But if we put in footings, does HCI want those protected? Or is it
So
just
we're
the
getting
concrete?
clarification on all that. HCI did mention protecting the pad and putting somehow, but I don't know that we have landed on an answer, but we are definitely.
Do we just tarp it,
But how are we protecting it? Those questions are coming, those answers are coming, but they have been raised. So, again, I don't have a crystal ball for weather, darn it. I just don't.
Do we know if, when they did mayors, do we know if they had to do anything like that? Maybe they could provide some guidance on what.
Their snow is so little over there.
Yeah.
The high desert, they get snow, but it's,
So not like here, not like.
yes,
Yeah.
8 inches.
Got it.
It's icy and cold. Accumulation is the big issue, and then having anything open. There's the risk of they want to bend the rebar, they want to put the rebar in those footers and get it all in, but during the winter is, what's the chance that the rebar will rust? What do we have to do to mitigate any kind of rust on the rebar? So there's a lot of dynamic right now, and the good part is that everybody's engaged in this conversation. We've recently, we just spun up another meeting to talk about this very thing. It's reactivation in spring. How do we do it? What are the good ideas that we can come up with? Donna's gonna be leading that. So the upshot is really pleased so far, really pleased, really good team. And they're really thinking outside the box. They're really trying to make up time. So that's good. We have multiple community opportunities for information sharing coming up. Chelsea's really starting to pick that up. As we start to do our construction, the community really wants to kind of keep track of where we are, but they're also asking a lot of questions about next phase, community events that we're gonna have. So we're gonna start sharing that. The first one, we're doing the real one in the town halls tomorrow at Plymouth Pines. So they're informational sessions. Those are gonna start kicking up in similar fashion to what we did with the bond measure, just information for people, ask questions, trying to show the most updated pictures and things to that. So
What was your sense about the town hall? How effective? I tried.
First one. First one.
listening,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it was good. I think that, we were able just to provide general updates, and introduce the foundation, just introduce it. That's all we were doing, was
Right.
introducing it. And I thought it was well received.
How
many people would you say were in?
There were 65 online,
In
and
the
there were maybe
room,
not even.
The audio wasn't very good.
Yeah, cause I know I look at, being online and looking at it, didn't look like very many people.
No, yeah.
there were.
And the audio and stuff were online.
Yes.
But a lot of people that were there.
So it
So
was,
it's,
it was one, I think it was start again.
One, the audio.
Was
The
it?
audio, yeah.
Well,
and it's kind of been,
It's on.
so cheaper. There. Like, listen, if. Great.
well, and you did well, because you managed to stay online the whole time. Once the deputy started talking, it only lasted for a few minutes, and then it said, the free Zoom meeting's over, Thurman cut it off.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
And you.
Yeah.
It's the best.
We didn't hear anything after that.
You're not gonna go around and get back in. It's going like, what the heck was it?
Yeah, even spawn flying. So. Said in there that we're curious. Good. Attention, so
That really probably, because I didn't hear anything.
very, it's great to see. So we're gonna be doing a lot of those. Got some lined up. Oh, yeah,
Just gonna mention, Pam's here from Kevin
Yeah,
Kaiser. She expressed an interest in potentially bringing him out next month. So that he can see the work, and she was hoping, maybe we could do like a community event kind of thing, like what we did.
Yeah.
With the kickoff, and people can come and see, because there's been a lot of work done since that kickoff
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So, just putting the bug in your ear.
approach me on that, and she'll connect with Chelsea,
Okay.
that together, and then we have the beam ceremony. He wants to, the beam ceremony.
Okay.
And he definitely said he's gonna come up with the beam ceremony,
Right.
so.
So, yeah, you mentioned the 501c3.
I just heard back today,
Yeah.
and we're getting traction, so,
Did you get help from his office?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was a size on my list here. So the 501c3, I reached out to Kevin County's office, they gave it to a caseworker, and she just wrote me back today and had me do a privacy release so that they can dig into our stuff. They found my privacy release that I'd already done, and so they're gonna try to dig that thing up,
Great.
yeah.
And she
So-
also asked me if I could get her exact figure, so I'm gonna make sure I run it past Steve, but she wanted to know what the original loan amount was, the final, all of
Oh.
that stuff, so I'm gonna get that information, give them another letter, because she has
Great.
staff or DC asking us for.
Perfect. So I would say that we're getting excellent support from Kevin County's
Yeah.
office. This is a big public works. This is a big one for his constituency, so, yeah. We've finished conducting our HR director interviews. They are completed. We have a panel recommendation, and an offer will be going out tomorrow for the new HR position. Chester High School is doing a field trip on October 2nd to the construction site.
Oh, cool.
So they've got, what they say, they have 16? Yeah. 16, so they're gonna come out to the construction site and do a field trip.
Which class is it?
I think it's the senior class, isn't it? This year's senior? I don't know for sure, I just heard,
Okay.
but they're gonna go out there and,
It's not students with a specific interest in,
That's what I was wondering.
well, actually, the kind of, yeah,
Yeah, that when we heard it's, the kids that came for clinical, but also construction.
construction management
yeah,
side of the
big
business.
deal in Chico State.
Yeah, so we're excited to host them. We're gonna get them all lined up with PPE and helmets and send them out there. So it'll be fun. Bringing attention October, this October, it's Breast Health Awareness Month, so we're gonna be doing some things here around breast health awareness as part of our community outreach, is, make sure you get that mammogram, make sure so we're gonna be supporting that. That's gonna be a big thing. Every October is that awareness month, and we're gonna engage in that. We have an interview coming up next week for Dr. Pockroy. He's gonna be visiting. Dr. Pockroy is an ER physician that's reached out to us. We have a new nurse, that was working in Nevada, right, with Dr. Pockroy, and this nurse was awesome. They were having a conversation with Dr. Pockroy. He says, I found it. Remember the thing we talked about when we were working night shift, that hospital? No, this is it. So Dr. Pockroy, is coming out. We're gonna be, interviewing him for an ER position, which is really rounding out, and Brady can go into more detail, really rounding out our, the overall, in general, the facility's doing really, really well with getting rid of locum and temporary staff. Well, Judy, you guys have been doing more interviews than I've seen in a long time, so we're getting a lot of interest, and I wish I could point exactly why. I think it's probably, it's Jenny out there beating the bushes or something, because we're getting a lot of permanent staff interviews, which is really great, including physicians. So really want to hang on to this momentum. We're going to ultimately try to stabilize completely our ER with our contracted doctors versus locum. So we're pretty excited for Dr. Pockroy's visit. And that will really round it out, if he comes on board. So just a lot of really, really good things happening in Senegal. A lot of really good things. We're coming into winter, which is gonna be our
It's not a good
internal,
thing.
what's that?
That's not necessarily a good thing.
Well, so our numbers are still staying up, so, I wish our ER numbers were higher, but I don't wish that on the community, obviously. But we had a conversation just a little bit ago with Judy and Brady about our inpatient volume, and so winter is our time to really focus on shoring up these things that during our busy season is really hard to get a hold of, but shoring things up. So there's gonna be a lot more outreach for preventative things, like we're going through outreach for colonoscopies that haven't been done for years, people that should be doing them. So rather than leaving to their good graces, we're gonna be doing an outreach to try to increase our procedural volume during the winter. So there's a lot of things that we're talking about to level it off instead of that big spike and then flat, to kind of spike and then bring it up to a higher level. So the executive team is really working through those ideas, and we're gonna activate them this winter.
Is there potential for a community message out there, and winter's a good time to get these things done, no
That's
waiting?
what we're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna be doing, yeah. Brady will probably cover this, but you're gonna cover the ultrasound, right? Okay, never mind, I'm done. Any questions?
The only thing I wanted to mention is a while back you mentioned seeing an increase in patients,
Oh, that's,
from Susanville,
yeah, so
from Lassen County. Well, my neighbor has just gone through a whole scenario with trying to get a service at Banner. And basically, he said that he was told they've outsourced the appointments to some office in Arizona. So it's really, really
that's
hard.
that office, yeah.
And I think from what he said, people he's talked to since then, everybody that wanted to go there is so frustrated that we may see unless something changes, we may see a big uptick in patients over the winter, which would help our numbers.
Which would be great. So I actually did receive, and I'm sorry I didn't prepare it for this meeting, but I'll get it going. We did do our zip code analysis to see from which zip codes we're establishing new patients. We're gonna be doing a lot of outreach in Westwood and Pinetown, since partnerships now in place. We're gonna be doing sort of our informational sessions in those towns to talk about partnership and how you can actually choose to switch over for your primary care if you're assigned, to see if that group will come back over to Seneca. They have been, I think, but I'm gonna do a deep analysis on the zip code analysis that we've got to report back where our new patients are coming from, because there is a bump in our new patients, for sure.
So can you tell those patients that have partnership that live in those zip
Yeah,
codes?
you can tell.
Oh,
Yeah, we can get both the roster, the partnership roster.
How detailed is the zip code? I mean,
Well, the problem-
can you differentiate between Westwood and Country
Hamilton
Club?
Branch, no, that's the issue. We're seeing if we can slice and dice it down a little bit more based upon actual address,
Yeah,
but shrinking it and kind of shape it.
yeah, you can do it by zip code, you can do it by age, you can do by gender, you can, so you can.
Insurance.
By insurance, you can spin it those ways,
that's
so,
great.
yeah,
So it's been tough though, because as Rich just said, you have Ham Branch, the Peninsula,
yeah.
that whole area, but their mailing address is Westwood.
Yeah.
So it skews everything, grants that you try to seek, everything is screwed up.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it's just dialing it down so we have a better understanding of what our inflow looks like.
Mhm.
It's curious, it's a curious report. I'm really interested in taking a look, deep dive into it. And then really marketing to those areas. Curious to find out how many are from Susanville.
Yeah, that would be
That are
something really
established.
interesting. And with winter, you know, people in Westwood having to go over from Dania and go to Susanville. I think if we make it welcoming here,
Mhm.
that we will see that increase because nobody really wants to try to do for Dania.
And that goes to the newsletter, newsletter that went out today, about what I'm hearing from patients. So you should read that.
It's like, closer. I mean,
It is.
yeah.
We're on good footing. I really think that, all the work we've been doing, the whole team's been doing for the last, starting to come to fruition. It's sort of that culture's getting baked in. Not that we don't have little hiccups, we do, but we pay attention to those. We don't just let them pass. So I think it's a constant awareness, a constant push towards that excellence. And we'll just keep climbing the hill. We'll just keep climbing up, climbing up, climbing up. I think we'll see a huge influx when the new hospitals in place, especially procedurally. As we start to get more specialty physicians in, which are showing an interest. I'll share, I had a derm appointment and I said, Seneca would sure love to have a dermatologist, up there, and they scrambled to put their heads together like really. So it's those kinds of things, those dynamics that really, yep.
Should be, it's gonna get early in this, at the CBD board meeting, because the physician that their mother was seeing is a foot ankle surgeon and is interested in coming back. So, talk with you about it, give you the details, so that you can maybe reach out to them.
Happy to have a conversation. But yeah,
So partnerships being a good player with us?
Yeah,
Sounds like.
very good. They're very receptive. They're very attentive to our questions, especially from Steve's. I think Steve can comment, but they seem to be very, they'll answer questions. We don't have to fight all the time to get answers. So far, I can tell you that they're gonna squeeze, they're gonna be friendly, but there'll be a friendly squeeze as it relates to quality indicators and some of the reporting that we need to do, but kind of expect that. They're around population health. They're really interested in that. So that's my report. All in all, thumbs are up. Looks good.
Thanks, Sean. Any other questions for Sean? All right, thank you. Judy? You're
Okay, so we are definitely ramping up for our flu season. So we'll begin giving employee vaccinations beginning October 1st next week. And come November 1st, anyone who has chosen not to receive the flu vaccine will be required, if they're working in patient front areas, they will need to wear a surgical mask until the county officer declares that flu season is over, which is usually around April 30th or so. So, and we will be participating with Plymouth County Public Health in a drive-through flu clinic. That will be on Monday, October 28th. So we're supplying the nurses for that drive-through. So any public members who want to come and get a regular flu vaccine, we will not be offering a high dose flu vaccine that is recommended for people over the age of 65. But we will offer just a regular flu vaccine at that clinic, and
What,
it will be at Chester.
why don't we offer the high dose?
The county will supply it. They're only allocating regular flu vaccine, so I'm not sure why, but people can generally get the high dose vaccine with their doctor's office.
Can they get the pharmacy? That's all it is, yeah.
And you're picking up over CDD. That and also COVID vaccine, RSV, that's something that the people are interested.
What is the requirement for the staff? I looked at the policy for COVID that we had to review. Do all the staff that have patient contact have the booster?
Have the COVID booster? Yeah. Our obligation by the state is that we have to educate and offer. So we will educate. We have not experienced any employees asking for it. So, but our duty is to educate and offer it to our employees. They are not required to get the booster.
And if they don't get the booster, they don't have to wear a mask.
Okay. Let's see, so, moving on to emergency services. I had a mistake in my report. The Plymouth County EMCC will meet next week on the 2nd, not on the 3rd. And I'm now chairing that committee for the next 2 years. So hopefully I'll be able to, bring back, useful information in the EMS realm for you.
I'm glad to have you at the top of that. Sharing that.
Me too. I was very involved.
Seneca is involved in this really.
Yeah, it's important that we're at the table and, because we do have some issues over here. But I was also very involved in EMCC at Butte County as well, so it makes sense.
Now, the Indian Valley and Crescent Mills, is that the?
So the board of supervisors are, that's on their agenda for next week.
Okay.
So on the 30th, I believe, and so they'll be talking about that and then we'll follow up around that situation, so I'll learn more.
Is that a sensation?
I understand, yes, I don't have any details on it other than it's on the agenda. We were featured, we gave you a copy and was shared with me their stethoscope, which is a really public. We did a nice article that we did much better. He also got his photo in there too, so. And so you have that. So, on that, I had mentioned that our outside, an equipment. And they just received word on Monday that they are going to receive it. So we know what our deficit is in the ambulance, that was provided to us by Enloe, but, and so I had Steve Speaks run through the missing inventory. And a lot of it was, but it's an airway equipment. And then, of course, the Zoll defibrillator, which is a $5 item. And I know that we're kind of not wanting to spend money that we don't have to, but I would like to move forward and get the equipment that Stephen could procure for all of the airway, so that the ambulance would be ready to go with everything except for the Zoll defibrillator. So that would be the suction unit, all the airway equipment. It comes up to about $1,200. And, but then we would be reimbursed by the Elks Lodge. And part of their duties to receive that grant is that once we get the equipment, they would help us restock the ambulance with the equipment, and then they would get their grant.
Amazing.
How are you thinking the Zoll?
That's all my question.
How are you able to attain the Zoll defibrillator?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that maybe, CPUD would make a decision on what they're going to be doing with their ambulance assets, because they do have some Zoll defibrillators sitting there. Other than that, we could potentially put it on our auxiliary wish list.
How much do they run?
A lot. You can, yeah, you can, but I don't know what the waiting time is on that, but basically you're looking at somewhere in about the $38 zone. Is that, which would pretty much take out the entire.
Yeah, let's really pay attention to what's happening, the working annexation and see where things go.
So right now, as far as I know, even though Peninsula has had one rig that has been very problematic, goes in and out for service all the time. I'm just waiting for the chief to let me know when their mechanic is going to come back. And then we're gonna try and hand off the ambulance to them, but I would just like to have it as stocked as we fully can. And then noting that what we gave them will eventually come back to us if we ever need to get the ambulance back.
Do those defibrillators, do they only work or you only have them in service for a certain period of time before they get retired? Or how?
It's in so many discharges.
I don't know about that. Typically, it has to do more with about So when I first got to Seneca, we had a lot of M series old defibrillators that they were not supported anymore. Their batteries supported, so we moved to the R series, that's what we have. And then the ambulance, they typically carry the X series, which has some more functionality as far as internal CO2 and things like that, I believe. So that's why they're so expensive.
I wonder if maybe there's a grant that we can apply for that.
Potentially, yeah. So, and then I just, talked about positions that we're currently, looking for, or we are actively in interviews with, such as in nurse education. I'm not positive how far Brady's gonna go into our partnership survey that we had last week. Overall, we did pretty good. But there, from a clinical standpoint, there were some areas that they identified here, where they said we need to not only just have the AED here, but we needed to have basically a basic crash cart here with emergency medications and airway devices, et cetera. Our clinic survey team will be meeting again next week to talk about the findings of the week, 30 days to, do our plan of correction. And we'll look at what we need to implement in the clinic here as far as emergency preparedness for a TED. So that's very unusual for us. None of our clinics at Enloe, we only had what we called BLS cards, where we'd have like an ambu bag and the AED, but we didn't have anything beyond that because you're calling 911. And that is our standard here. If we have a code situation, we're calling 911. And we will do what we can, but when you have an emergency room, just across the parking lot. So now, it just,
Is it because we're a rural health clinic?
I don't know, because we've never had them.
No one's ever heard of this before, to have a full crash cart.
Are we doing stress tests now in the clinic?
Not in the clinic.
Now,
Is this something new that's coming out for everyone or just?
I don't know if they provided the copy of the regulation, because we did ask for that. And so, because it's new to us. Where we do our cardiac stress tests, is actually over in another building, and there's always a physician present, and we do have a full crash cart available in that area. But yeah,
Well,
so.
I mean, I guess
so
with
we'll work on that.
our new hospital location, maybe it's not a bad idea, that one.
Well, if you think about it, if we bring the crash cart in here and let's just say that cardiac or the stress testing moves over to this clinic, we'll have it here,
Yeah.
we'll have one here.
Yeah.
That one could potentially be redeployed into the surgical suite or someplace in between acute and skilled or ER. We'll make use of it.
Yeah,
We'll,
it's just we don't typically require that our physicians or our nursing staff are ACLS. And so it's like, well, okay, we have it, now what do we do with it,
We do.
so, I mean, I'm here every day, so, I mean, I'm ACLS certified. I can come over and help, no problem, but it just seems like a loose, like, not a worthwhile kind of thing. Anyhow, that's it, working on that, we'll keep you updated on how we're doing with our plan of correction overall, and I'll take any questions if you have. Okay, thank you.
thanks, Judy.
All right, so I think you're up.
thank you. So, just jumping off of Judy's partnership, Judy did a fantastic job shepherding us through the process. And the one thing that, partnership has the contract for the state for managed Medi-Cal. So some of these things that are coming as we're, doing our research, saying, are these the new rules that are coming down the pipe? And that's what the surveyor kind of alluded to. So that's what we're gonna do our due diligence, making sure that we're, compliant and all that, but also are these the new standards coming? So that was a great learning experience with Judy's and team. JJ did a phenomenal job and everybody to kind of get us through there. And the surveyor was very nice, which is great. And And so when it comes to the clinic, as a reminder, we're getting into our winter model. So the walk-in clinic will be put within the primary care offices. Dr. Finnerty's last day is October 3rd. We are working on her time next year. So that's going well. That will take one clinic out of out of operations unless we need it. We have a big flu season, we can always activate it again. And then we'll be kind of dealing the walk-in patients through the primary care offices like we did last winter. So that's the process. That also gives us, from our FTE count, a little cushion so we can get the projects done, like colonoscopy call, all the preventive care type calls. So that's what's new in the clinic. When it comes to Linda's realm, there's one thing I'm gonna ask. Linda, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, so if you can explain the generator batteries and how long you've had them and what purpose they serve.
well, their start batteries, have been, in position for over 5 years now. Excuse me, we're getting close to, year 6. And although the specific gravity tests for the batteries are still good, we don't normally push them like a car battery until they die because we need the generator to start in an emergency. So, preventive maintenance is replaceable every 5 years. We did get a quote from Peterson Power for replacement of the batteries. It's approximately $2,800. Excuse me. And while they're here, I would like them to look at the potentiometer for the voltage on the generator as well, as it appears to be a little loose. So this is Norm, and I think we brought this to the attention of the board in late spring. So
this is something over the winter we'll, bring to Sean and Steve and work on that. That is a unit in the future that could be, sold depending on what we figure out what we're doing with that facility. So it is important to keep that, multiple reasons why it's important, but that's another reason. So that's Linda's report. On there, ultrasound. So yesterday and today, the new ultrasound was uncrated, put into service, and they're connecting it to everywhere where it needs to be connecting. They're testing it. They've done 9 patients, I think, on it, something like
I
that.
did yesterday's suite and just copied them off disk.
Yeah, and really kind of work with our ultrasound tech and with their people on, fine tuning the protocols and all that stuff. So that's up and running. I just want to bring that, which is exciting.
Very.
And we're hearing a buzz around town that, hey, you got a new sonogram, ultrasound there, type thing. So that's good. So so thank you again for that. We're excited about that.
And what about the butterflies?
Well, Brian.
Yeah, so this week completed our Apple corporate identification, which was kind of a bit more of a challenge than I expected it to be able to configure the iPads at a managed level. We have those in play tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Yeah, tomorrow I have a call with Butterfly Answer about the interface process. Again, how much can we automate it in the community workspace? There's some discrepancy between what Butterfly says can be done, what Cerner says can be done in the shared environment with the interfaces, so that should be all straightened out. I expect us to have the iPads completely configured in 2 weeks and the Butterflies out and about being able to use for diagnostic. They have been using it in the walk-in clinic just to get familiar with it because while Sarah was here. So, it has been available if anybody ever looked at it.
What about training for the ER docs?
Good, those are coming, yeah, there's a whole.
Once we're configured and everything, they'll come out and do applications and
Right.
Clinic providers, ER doctors, there's a lot of excitement around. Yeah.
Yeah, Sean was able to negotiate a user, licensing because of our uniqueness with the not full-time staff. And so that we can get everybody an individual license.
That's great. Awesome.
And so clinic providers, we have signed Dr. Russo for a 2-year agreement, moved him out of a locums arrangement more into a direct locums arrangement with the facility. So that gives that stability. We do have Stephanie White coming online. She's going to be taking her test, I think, in October. She's keeping the date quiet, so she's focused, but that's exciting for the group. So going into winter, we'll have a good provider team, and staffing wise is going well. Our training programs, everything, so our staffing is pretty stable for the winter. And that's it, if there's any questions.
That sounds great. Any questions for Brady? No. Thanks, Brady.
Thank you.
I think it is, right?
All right, it's been really active really quickly these last couple of weeks. We got our new fleet delivered today, and 2 test printers went out today. The plan is to run those for a couple of weeks and then swap out the rest of the facility. So we're off Xerox prices, and we can the monthly cost will be significantly less on that. We did get our new Frontier 1 gigabit link live, which now helps our long-term care patients increase their internet speed tenfold. So there's several patients over there, several of our people over there that really utilize it, so that's helped. With that, now we can start looking forward, planning how to, move our PAC system to the cloud, which is a budgeted process that we have out there. Gives us that flexibility that if we have issues that we're not in here, it's being managed by somebody else. We limit our connectivity into the building for the radiologist group, for the overnight.
That increases our security.
So, and then, with that, our failover is complete with Cerner on the new link and Starlink. So as long as we have power, we have critical capability to do everything here. So that's another big fold this week.
So even if we're on generator,
Correct, yeah,
that's.
because Starlink will connect us back to Kansas City, so we can print, we can do labs, we
Right.
can sign in, we can look at charts. Some of the things that we have been investigating, with the fires, if we have to move our SNF patients, how they can be active, if we have to take SNF patients from other places that aren't Cerner, how we can seamlessly kind of take care of those without necessarily having to move them from one system to the other. They can still be documenting in their own system. So, that's come up big, and working as we understand Cerner's charging in the background. We have these one-off meds that we give in the clinic every once in a while that aren't built, and they aren't built in the domain, which you've heard me talk about before, get stuck in a global change process. One of the R1 folks that Steve had brought in had showed us a way to fix venipuncture charges that were missing. We've kind of used that methodology for these one-time med charges. So we're asking for them to be built, but we're not having to hold the claim anymore. So we can kind of push that through in the process. So the last kind of thing we're working on is all the cameras that were installed several years ago are now live. We are going to add 2 more as we looked at the holes for coverage. So we've redirected a couple, so the one in the clinic here kind of covers, instead of covering the door, because we have one in the lobby now, kind of covers the street going this way. The one that was in the back of the building, because patients don't come in that way anymore, is pointing towards construction, so we can see what's going on there. We're adding a camera pointing to construction on this side of the building over here. And then our biggest weak point was this side of the parking lot and coming into the employee interest. We didn't have any, so I got 2 new cameras that we'll be putting in to cover those areas.
Are we recording?
Yes, we are recording. We have about a 30-day retention period on that, and the tool that Sean picked initially I struggled with. But now that we've got the 1 gig link too, because it's connected to the cloud, it is got a lot of AI in there. You can say, I need a moving vehicle at Tuesday night between 10 and 2 in the morning. I don't have to watch 3 hours worth of video.
That's fantastic.
A suspicious guy in blue.
You can say, what color shirt, what color pants.
Yeah, you can say a blue shirt guy, 2 in the morning.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
those, yeah.
When I say you have to sort of.
Right, yeah, that's the good part. And, we've used it several times.
Yeah.
Actually, we've used it several times. For the police,
It's super.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, recently I was reading, there was a lockdown briefly, was it the 14th or something like that? Yeah. Yeah, did the camera come in handy then?
we didn't need it for that. But there were times when, there were bolos out and there were suspicious people coming in the back door.
The cops were saying,
The staff called me and they wanted to see who these people looked like and they didn't match the bolos, so everybody kind of was able to relax, so.
it's got a special AI setting for suspicious CEO.
Big white
I
truck,
think he added that one.
the big white truck. Yeah, no, that's about it. Waiting for my one staff member to come back from maternity leave shortly. When the new HR person comes on, as the staff has increased, we will help the HR department with Paycom. I've been involved with the HR software on my other facilities, so to leverage and to increase the capability and use that it has and try to take some of the manual work off the managers and let the system do the work.
That's great.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Busy.
Yeah.
All right, and next up, is Jenny on? Oh, I
She
see
is,
Jenny.
Yes.
Your turn, Jenny.
Yes.
Thanks for
Hi.
joining us.
Of course. I have been interviewing a lot. Sean touched on that a little bit, but I feel like every day there's been a new interview to set up. So we've been having lots of incoming resumes, which is great. It's a great trend to have. Other than that, I want to apologize. The newsletter went out a little bit late, so I don't know if you guys got a copy. If you need a copy, Deborah can send that to you. But I'm here for any questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask Deborah for the newsletter because we definitely would love to see that.
Of course. I'll have Deborah email it out to you.
All right, and I also had noted the uptick in interviews that you guys were doing, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Just
it's really
being-
great. It's really great to
Yeah.
see the influx of talent for sure.
Now, are we asking people how they found out about things? Like, where they found
Yeah,
out?
I generally do. Usually it's through either social media ads, which Chelsea is really helpful with. I run some of them, Chelsea does some others. We do Indeed sponsored postings for some of the positions, so people hear about it that way. Word of mouth is really big. Our employees have been sharing, that we're hiring for certain positions, friends and family, all of that good stuff.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Jenny? No. Thank you, Jenny, appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, now we have Chelsea.
Well, hi. Okay, so I am remote today. My report is pretty general for marketing. There is something newer towards the end that I kind of wanted to go over with all of you guys. You guys had asked about geofencing. So we tried a small campaign with geofencing just with our provider campaign. So we tried it with all of our providers. And I attached kind of the stats at the back so you could see. So the impressions are where people stopped long enough to actually read through the ad. So it shows you like where the impressions are. The clicks are where people actually click to get to our website. And then the conversion is what percentage of those clicks actually came on site to our facility. So it's some interesting information. The next geofencing campaign that we're going to do is going to be more generic, more of like the clinics here, it's open, we're accepting patients. We'll do one for ultrasound, and we have a couple other items. But we're going to kind of compare the two smaller campaigns and see what's more successful as far as getting people to, click through and then getting those people on site to our facility. So that is just our first sampling of the geofencing. And so any questions?
Yeah, it looks like most of the one we did in Madison Smart one was performance max, I'm wondering what differences between them.
Yeah, so the Performance Max was where we set like a price per day, but also that was just a job opening ones. And as you can see, nobody actually stopped on that. They just kept scrolling through or they ignored it. So there's no clicks.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if it was presented, somehow differently than the smart.
Yeah, and we wanted to see how it ran differently, like as far as how it performed. But basically, that was just, we gave it a limit per day of here's how, here's how much per day we're willing to pay for this, for these job opening postings. And also it's kind of a little different because when we ran these was, so the reason you have such a wide date span there is because we ran them over 4th of July weekend. We ran them over kind of the holiday weekends and things like that. But the people that it was targeting, I don't think they were looking for job openings. So, but I don't know. It was interesting how that one had no impressions or clicks compared to the other ones.
Yeah, and it could be interesting to see, I mean, it may be a matter of, like you said, time of year, maybe this time of year, more people would be interested in putting through to job openings than during the summer when everybody's busy and doing more of their summer activities.
Right.
Interesting.
So yeah, the plan is to run a couple more smaller campaigns through this off season. And so then that way we know what kind of really is working and then run a large campaign again when our heavy tourism season hits. And the only thing that I can't tell, so it shows me, okay, this person who also saw this ad came into came in within this radius. So we literally did a bubble around the facility. They came within this radius. What I don't know is if they came into the ER, they came into the clinic, they came into which provider. So because once they click, it takes them to the list of all our providers. It gives them the contact information for the clinic. So even though they're clicking on this provider, I can't tell which provider they actually came into.
Wow. That's really neat though, Chelsea.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Thank you for bringing that so we can see that.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I just want to point out something that since we instituted Radar 8, which we talked about way back before summer, our Google reviews are at 4.5 stars. We were at 3. So we are we're actively soliciting feedback. And I want to tell you that if you look at the Google, we're sitting at 4.5, which I'm telling you, it matters when people are looking there.
It does.
They look at your reviews, they read your reviews, and so really pleased with the way Radar 8 started to perform. Chelsea, great work on that.
Right. And
that somebody mentioned in the interview that I looked you up and you guys don't have stars, and I read through your reviews. And that got me to apply.
That's great, because before I think we just had people that wanted to complain going on there.
Yeah.
exactly. That was really what we had before. One of the things with Radar 8 is now, so we focused on just the general district, the general hospital. Now we're starting to focus on those individual providers to try and get ratings with those. So we have, Watson, Jensen, Kohler, all of those. So those ratings will start to climb as well. But right now we were really focused on, let's just get our general, the clinic, the hospital, the healthcare district as a whole up. And so now that those are doing well and looking strong, it's starting to send those reviews to the individual providers as well. And once it does Google, then it moves on and it starts to do Yelp and the other platforms as well.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. That was actually one of my next questions, was how do we make sure we get it everywhere?
Yeah.
That's really neat. Thank you.
So Chelsea, I have a question. So I'm looking at the geofencing, the initial run campaign performance page. And I'm looking at where Serafinity has had 20,000 or 200, impressions, but 256 clicks. How does that work?
So that means she had 20,000 impressions. So those impressions are people that stopped on the ad long enough to look at it. So whether they were scrolling and they stopped and they looked at it, they read through. Clicks are people that said, I want to know more. And they clicked on it to see what she does or where she's at. So that's the difference between those.
Pretty cool.
Thank you.
Analytics are neat.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Chelsea?
Scary and scary.
Thank you, Chelsea.
You're welcome.
When you're gonna provide us feel that the statistics.
You're looking at it way back. You know, the stats out there anyway.
Yeah. I think the patient guidelines, and those. If you need to put it, that can be, so. I'm not sure about them here.
All right, let's see, is Charlene on? All right, Charlene, go ahead. You have, anything to report in your open session? Charlene, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you if you're talking.
This is, well, this is open, isn't it? Yes. This is not, this is just.
You have to close, I don't think I should check, so Shannon. Okay. Steve, you're up.
Hello. So I'm here in my office. We're having our external audit this week. So I'm trying to remain available for Gerald while he's here. But if I need to come over and talk to you all, that's fine. Just let me know. So Brian, let's take a look at 9.1A. So is there a way on the Zoom or whatever?
I gotta reshare that screen. You want to have control, Steve?
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, a lot of information here. Hope you guys had some time to look at it because it's a demonstration of improvement, but certainly not a demonstration of mission accomplished. So if you go to slide 2, well, what is it? Sorry, slide 4. Okay, thank you. So here is our scorecard for the combined AR activity, revenue cycle activity, the combined being both hospital and clinic. Does not include nursing home, as nursing home resides in a separate information system. And the big thing here is the trend that we're seeing on the unbilled revenue from May, from 23.5 down to 16.2. That's the number of AR revenue days in revenue that are unbilled. And we're hoping here it's going to be close in September, but we've been holding up, which have to now be approximating $500,000 of claims related to the wound care services that Dr. Jensen and initially Dr. Russo are doing on patients that involve not skin grafts, but whatever it is, replications of skin that are applied to wounds of the patient. And we've been doing this quite regularly, but have been struggling to get all of the billing together and ability to generate the claim out of Cerner. But we think we have that resolved, at least on a workaround basis, that will allow us to get the bills out. So whenever those go, that's going to be approximately a 7-day drop in unbilled revenue. And it just would be really nice if we could do it in September and see that unbilled AR number drop to single digits, because that's been a rough go for everyone on that one. The other thing is our days, although they didn't go down significantly, They went down, and we're now in the combined. We're at 85.5 days, which, as you can see, is still way above where we want to be. So work continues there. One of the things that I'd also like to point out here is the very bottom of the scorecard. There is a thing called Client Assist, and that's where R1 has something's happened with a claim with an account, and they've sent it back to Seneca staff to work and resolve. And as you can see there, we're seeing another positive trend going from 14.8 days. It's similar to the unbilled revenue, and it that are trending down from 14.8 in May down to 10.3 in August. So Brian, if we could go to slide number 8. So this is the same scorecard, but this is just the data for the hospital only. Not going to go through the information. For the most part, it's representative of the combined. One of the main reasons being is that the hospital AR represents approximately 90% of our total AR. But just so you guys, when you go through this document on a monthly basis, or anytime you want to take a look at this for whatever reason, this is what this represents. So if we could go to slide 12. This slide here represents what we call the clean claims rate. And what this means is a claim that was submitted to our clearinghouse and went through the clearinghouse with hitting an edit or rejection. We have a target of 80%, and we're currently, this is for the hospital only, we're currently at 73.5, which is great because we're close to our target. But once we get to that target of 80, we're going to push it up higher, because ultimately we want to be at a 90% plus rate of clean claim rate.
And Steve, I'm sorry, just to clarify, that percentage is based on number of claims, not the dollar amount, right?
Yeah, I played with that once. It is on the total errors, but typically it's really close. Not
Well,
this month.
I just asked because this one is quite a bit different, that's why yeah.
Yeah. So this month, the error, well, the errors off of just claims volume was the 26.5. The errors off of dollars was 45, which means that the claims were rejecting emergency department, or if we happen to have inpatient, or it rejected those wound care claims if we actually sent one out. Okay. All right. This one's for Shelley. Slide 14. So this is the denials. And again, this is for just the hospital. And a couple of things have gone on here is we finally got R1 to track these denials correctly. There was some double counting. They were counting secondary claims. So when a secondary claim goes out, the total charges go out on the claim, whereas we may only be billing for a very small amount. So, and we probably got denied when we first sent it out as a primary, but quite possibly anyway. And so they've stopped that. And as you can see on the hospital, the numbers are very much acceptable. The 3.9 in June was fabulous. I think we have a target of 5%. So 7.7, 8.9 are still there. The concerning thing is the trend upward. So when we look at the clinic, we don't necessarily have to go there. The clinic, we're still having some struggles. Interestingly enough, though, the clinic denial rate's around 25%. And if you guys recall from a few months back, the denial rate was really high. It was like, crazy 80% or something like that. So we brought it down from there. But the fact that it's been the same over 3 months of 25%, that's it's not awful, but it's something that gets our attention and something we want to look at. So R1 has said they're gonna dig into that one a little more, and see what the story tells there.
So Steve, this is Shelby. So I'm noticing the bundling. So what are the issues around bundling codes?
Excellent.
You know what? That's a mystery to me. I think it's a payer specific thing. Let's see if they usually put it's good old partnership. So let's see, and I don't even know if this is bundling. It says per review, a certain CPT code was billed twice, one with description, emergency room was getting paid. I'm on slide 15, was getting paid, and another description, Profi ER, is getting denied as duplicate. So that's problematic because, I don't know the billing that in depth. That some payers, we can combine the pro fee and the facility fee on an ER claim. That's the way they want to see it, mainly because that we're billing for the pro fee on a UB form instead of a HCFA 1500 type form, physician services form. And so this may be a case of that we're still struggling with getting our rules to work on the in Cerner to where they drop the claim on the appropriate claim type, on and on. So this will be something that they'll dig into. And then let me read on here. Profis was denied in duplicate since billed twice. One with, that seems like the same thing, was denied in duplicate. Team was not.
I mean, we're still fairly new with partnership. We just contracted as of January. So has this been a trend since January?
Bundling's always been a problem with Cerner because we didn't set our rules up correctly. But says team was not following the correct workflow for maybe corrections. Okay. SR ticket was open for the reason emergency and pro fee charges are getting billed with the same CPT code, and now the emergency CPT code is replaced with a Z code. Okay. These denials are for older claims. It should be done through. Okay. So when we have a denied claim, when we appeal a denied claim with partnership, they want it to go through a different medium than a clean or initial claim. So, so more information to come on that.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't think it's indicative, as the discussion was earlier, of what we're experiencing with partnership, they're just incredibly particular about what they want on their claims. And at least they'll tell us what it is. So.
Tell the guests.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. The rest of the stuff is the same scorecards for the clinic, the clean claim rate, almost at 90%. Then previously discussed, we're having bundling things in the clinic as well, Shelley. So that's something we want to look at. Big thing with bundling is the difference with bundling between that, something that they're never going to pay for, that the payers, just the way we have it, and they deny the claim because it's on the claim, they don't want to see it, versus something like that where we have the facility fee and the professional fee on there both with the same CPT code was an interesting one. But so there's different, that's kind of the thing I've been talking to R1 for quite some time about is, tell me which in these denials here is really money we're losing, as opposed to money that we would never get, that they're just never going to pay, and it's really more of an adjustment than a denial. Now, if it takes the whole claim down, then that's a problem, as opposed to just a line item thing. So I think now that we're getting claims out and actually actively working this stuff, I think denials will be that our clean claim rate is better, and we're starting to whittle down the discharge not final bill. That denials will be a bigger focus, and it's great because lots of claims are going out that our denial rate has come down or is lower, whatever. The last thing. Yes, question?
This is Shelley. So what does R1 say about what is our low-hanging fruit, the top 3 low-hanging fruit that we should go after?
As far as denials or just anything?
Anything.
Well, I think the biggest low-hanging fruit we have, without question, is the wound care stuff that we haven't been able to bill out. There's some larger inpatient or swing claims that still remain out there. And I don't know if it's a matter of that the patient went from ER to inpatient or observation to inpatient and we're having a problem. I know we've been fighting some of those, and those are large claims. As far as the low-hanging fruit, Shelley, those are 2 from that haven't even gone out the door or haven't been submitted to the payer. I think the low-hanging fruit, and we continue to have conversations with them, is that, you don't have to flip back there, but right now our insurance AR greater than 90 days on a combined basis is 27.2%. We would expect that number to be down more like 10% or less. So we have, whatever, couple $1 million at least over 90 days. And why is that not being converted into, claim payments? We push the issue a little bit or a lot, and we see some real results. Like the month of August, it was our highest hospital and clinic collection month since we went live with Cerner. So and it wasn't all just current stuff, it was older stuff too. But then we lose a little momentum with our cash. So the big thing about the older AR is not just collecting it, but trying to determine why is it sitting out there? Why is the payer not paying it? Just because they're ignoring it and we're ignoring it. So it's not going to pay itself. And, quite frankly, these types of analytics of our revenue cycle and our AR have taken a back seat to the work we've done to get where we're now reducing the discharge, not final billed, and we're getting claims to clear, our clean claim rates up, our denial rate, appears to be down and things like that. And I think it's indicative of revenue cycle as a whole at Seneca that our focus has been really on getting the system, correctly and properly built and functioning to the way that it needs to be, and getting the information into the claims to get them out and get submitted and accepted by a payer. And that's been our focus. And I'll admit it, we all have not spent as much time on the AR management as we need to and as we would like to. So don't have a lot of great answers there. But getting it out the door and getting accepted by the payer is I don't know if you call that low hanging fruit, but it's, you can see that where we've got, we had as high as 25, 30 days of AR, that's a couple $1 million just sitting there that we provided the service, and charges are sitting there, but we can't get the claim out.
Do we feel like R1 is still working really hard to our benefit?
Yeah, I think they've worked incredibly hard. We had a real struggle with them, Shelley, and everyone that post go live, we really didn't have the right people from R1 in place. We had more of people that you would want or have, that once things were up and running. We still needed the troubleshooters. We still needed the people that understand how the system works or is supposed to work and be able to identify issues so we can get the SR things listed with Cerner and then stay on it and test it to make sure it works. One of the real things two things that happened with R1 that really has kind of renewed our warm feelings about them is they were able to communicate with Cerner. One reason being is that they have like a soft partnership or whatever you call it. It's not a legal relationship, it's not a financial relationship, but R1 bought Cerner's revenue cycle division when Cerner failed a few years back. And so many of the people we work with R1 were former Cerner employees. So they've kind of maintained that connection a little bit. And so they have regular meetings with Cerner and R1 revenue cycle leadership to talk about what's going on. And we've been a very significant part of that discussion. And what they were able to do, R1 was able to do, was to demonstrate to Cerner how poorly their contractor did with our installation and implementation. And they owned up to it. And Cerner has put forth people from Cerner, not R1, not S&P, the system build contractor, to help us. And they've stuck with us to fix things. And I think they're learning things about their own system, because they sure as heck haven't been able to snap their fingers and get it fixed. So they've had to work through it too. And the other thing is that Cerner doesn't have up until recently, with the recent hospitals in our area, doesn't have a real strong presence with Community Works in California. And so Critical Access, Rural Health Clinic, Medi-Cal, was a little bit of a new experience for them, and it was absolutely a new experience for S&P. So they're learning stuff as they're going through with us, and so maybe everybody wins, but R1 was able to arrange this help, and they continue. There's guys hold regular meetings with our staff to fix things that from the private pay statements to some of the billing things related to rural health clinic, Medi-Cal, critical access, wrong type of bill and things. So without that, we would have been in big trouble. It's just a shame it took so long for us to get to that point. We just kind of wiggled through the fall and winter of 23, and then we got around to 24, and we did have a somewhat of a sense of panic because our AR days got up to 100 and they just stayed there. They weren't moving. And so as you see now, they're down to 85, which is good, but still a ways off. And so
Cerner has user groups, and I think our one is really actively engaged in their user groups.
I would
I know.
imagine so.
You what?
I would imagine so. I would imagine
Yeah.
they're into
Yeah.
into everything, whether it's the type of user group that we need
Right.
is another question. But then also ultimately here in the spring, we got a new lead. The ladies who's on the presentation, Erica Vaca, customer success manager, and she, a lot of people have that title, success manager, but man, this individual lives it. She really does. So, and she's been the right person to come in because she's seeing where R1 is, they use that term, they're not following the workflow. And it's the way that they have designed people to work the accounts and the things to do within the Cerner system that they know will work, or it's the best practices or whatever. And then they see when they're not following it. And so we're bringing it to the attention of them through that their staff sometimes is falling down. Nobody's perfect, including me. So, that's kind of a cool thing. But when she sees that, she doesn't, give us the one-off loadable and things like that. She jumps on it. So I just, Shelly and everybody, it's just worn us out. We're beat. And we just wish it would get over.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Does R1 get a percentage?
they
again,
do.
or I'm sorry.
They do, and it's a great percentage, frankly. It's a little over 3%, which is quite a bit less than we're paying the previous vendor. So that's a good deal for us. They also came in and they're doing all of our clinic coding now, which has been, if we didn't have that, you do the math. It just wouldn't get done. So there'd be another problem. That's a fairly reasonable $5 a chart. So, that's
So
been
many hours a day.
Right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve, for everything you and your team to try to get this, and it seems like we're on the right track.
we're getting very close to getting the system where we need it, and then we can look at all of the whole CQI process of revenue cycle and start monitoring and measuring and improving that. So looking forward to that. Oh, forgot to say, last slide. Well, maybe next to last slide, other than the thank you. Long-term care. The ending AR for the end of August is $351,000. The revenue for the month of August is which we never get because we bill the month in the following month. So we're always going to have that month we report on outstanding. as long as we do monthly billing. And so it's 351,000. So we have the August revenue plus 70,000, which is clearly the best we've done with long-term care AR since we started, and it's a great accomplishment there. So that one was good. So that's it.
Thank you for not skipping it.
That would have been a bad one to miss. Okay, we're going to just skip item 9.1B. I'll just let you guys know that we meet every Thursday. Well, Sarah Lynn, our revenue cycle coordinator, does. Sometimes I miss it due to a conflict, but we meet with them. We met today, and they give us a weekly update. So that was just to give you an idea of the way that September was trending through September 14th. And we looked at the info for through the 21st, and it's not as robust as August, but it's hanging in there. We're not sliding backwards. So wish we were continuing to move forward more, but working on it. So that's just there for your information. It doesn't go into the depth that the month-end report does. It just kind of pops up the scorecards for the combined, the hospital and the clinic. So stuff you can look at. So Brian, if we could go to 9.2A. Okay, so I just put this in here for you all. I just want to kind of bring the board up to speed with the financial side of the new build. So when we engaged with the USDA, and actually when they gave us the initial approval of the loan back in September of 2023, they gave us what's called a letter of conditions, and it's like loan covenants for the USDA. And one of the provisions in there was that we had to make a owner's contribution of $8,060,170 before the USDA would kick in and allow any of the project expenses to be paid with financing. So with in this case, the interim financing. And so when we closed on the loan on August 27th, and I don't know, can you all see those numbers okay there?
We have them in front of us too.
Okay, hey, there we go. Okay, thank you. So we had spent $6,090,506, which means we still had to commit $1,969,664 to that owner's contribution. So typically what they'll say is you guys need to put that in a separate bank account, show us you have it, and then you pay expenses out of their project expenses out of there from day one, dollar one. Since we went with a trust, which was the request of Western Alliance Bank, who did our interim financing, what we had to do is we had to give the trust that's managing our project funds, we had to give them that $1,969,664, and we've met our owner's contribution per the 2023 letter of conditions. So that was the first part of the transaction. Then there are two components to the interim financing. One was our GO notes, the tax bond, and the other one was the certificates of participation. The GO notes are going to be serviced. The interim financing interest is going to be serviced through the tax assessments. We have to pay the interest. We, Seneca, have to pay the interest on the certificates of participation. We were not able to put up the whole $2 million, estimated $2 million of interim financing interest at one time. So they said, okay, go ahead and put 500,000, but you have to do it at closing. So that was the other part. So we sent the Western Alliance Bank $2,469,664 on August 27th. Any questions about that?
I don't hear any, Steve.
You cannot hear me?
No, I don't hear any questions.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Brian, if you can go to the next page and then rotate it as you need. Yeah, that one, but rotate page 2. Okay. So then what we have is we have 2 funds with the trust. Is we have our construction fund, and then we have the capitalized interest fund. The construction fund was where the $1.9 million went in there, and that's those first 3 items. The reason they're broken out into 3 is that this second and third is the $1,070,000 that was designated to pay the cost of issuance, the delivery costs, the underwriters, the municipal advisor, the attorneys, bankers and attorneys. So that was the money designated for that. That left just under $900,000 to just go in for general fund, construction fund expenses. The final cost of issuance came in just a tiny bit under the $1,070,000. So we ended up with $901,881.76 in the construction fund after paying the cost of issuance delivery costs. So the other piece of this is that we will start drawing on the 2 different loans, one being the COP and the other being the GO note. So working with Donna Huntingdale and the general contractor, we came up with a draw schedule it's quarterly over the entire project. And we pull in this money, and this will go into the construction account. And then those funds, along with the remaining $900,000 of our money, will be used to pay project expenses as they're submitted on a monthly basis. So the first draw was at closing. We took $1 million out of the COP, and then we took $5,885,656 out of the GO note. So we had you can do the math. The 5 million number I just said plus $1 million. So 6,855,000 plus our 901. So after the end of all these transactions, we had the $7,787,573.76 sitting in our construction fund available to pay project expenses. And this money will be designated to pay our August and September pay submissions. August already went in. Sounds like the USDA likes what they saw, so they're going to be telling the bank to go ahead and issue the payment. It's a little over $2 million. And then we're working on the September draw request. On October 15th, I think, we will do our next quarterly draw, and I think it's $2.5 million. And so that money will be used to pay expenditures through the rest of the calendar year. And then our next construction draw will be in January, and on and on and on. So, Brian, I guess rotate it counterclockwise or counterclockwise. Right. Okay. So, and here's we don't have access to the funds. We cannot basically, we cannot access the money, but we have access to the statements so that we can track the activity and confirm that the funds are there. And this first one shows where our money, the 901 and the $1 million draw on the COP loan is right there. And then as we keep going, there's the 5,000,008 885, from the Geo note draw. So any questions about that? What we're looking at, what that represents, what we're doing, anything?
I have a question about the invoices. Were we able to get from the USDA what they wanted to see on the invoices to make sure that there's no hiccup getting vendors paid?
It appeared from the last correspondence that they were happy with the submission for September. Then we resubmitted some revised August. And Steve, you can jump in here, but they felt like it was appropriate for them and it was good enough, yeah.
Great, thank you.
So hopefully they'll send that off, we'll go off the bank, make an issue and contract to pay.
Okay.
Is that a fair statement, Steve?
Yeah, I just
And,
think that when there's a general contractor, I think that's a conversation Jerry will be having offline, I guess, with somebody about how we confirm that the subs are getting paid and that's all happening. That's certainly not, at least to this point, what the USDA is asking for.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, and then
Any
the
other
last
questions on this
piece,
document? So, go ahead, Steve.
okay, so the last piece of it is, sorry, the same document. Okay, so the last piece of it is just the 500,000 sitting in the capitalized interest. Each month through February of 2025, we'll put in a little over 35,000 a month, and we'll just, over the 2.5 years of the project, we'll ultimately fund the entire interest.
We
So
get any interest on the interest?
I haven't seen any. So that is a downside. I'll be talking to Western Alliance Bank about some other stuff. So I'll inquire about, where they could stick that with the way things are. But again, we've talked about how it has to be completely liquid. So, or at least 30 days or something. Okay, and this is just the interest. And then as we go further, it's the same thing. It's a copy of the information from the bank account. So that's that. Okay, so Brian, if we go to 9B real quickly, just wanted to show you guys, this is how we request, a payment from the USDA. This is called outlay form 271 or whatever. And what on the far left there, it's, as it says, it's the classifications of our project. The first column, forget about it. LOC budgets, the September 23 budget. The revised budget is our current budget. And then the next column in cost this period, this is the column where we request a payment. This is what we're submitting. This is referred to as a pay request. And then the next column is the current period pay request, but what has previously been paid. And then the last column, which is kind of important and kind of significant to all of us, is how much money is left. So, there will also be a discussion about where we're at as far as to budget, because this is an old one, but that right above where the arrow, that line where the arrow is at, if that's Brian, that line there, that's our contingency. So we have $8.3 million in contingency, 5.5 of which is specifically designated to the construction line, which is below there, item K. And then 2.8 is what's referred to as owner's contingency. So we don't anticipate that that non-construction items are going to go over budget. We think those are pretty well nailed down, and there's not a lot of variability in them. Obviously, the building, the facility, that where the cost variabilities come out. So that'll be our focus. That 54,750,000 plus the 5.5 million. So, and so that's requested real quick, Brian, to page 2. So page 2.
Can you hold on, Steve, sorry, real quick. Can you help me understand why some of these lines are red and some are black? Because it doesn't look like it's a revised budget difference necessarily.
No, theoretically, it's the items that Seneca is supposed to pay for and the items that the USDA was going to pay for with the loan. So there, again, there's two components. Yeah, ours, yeah, I think I heard what you're saying.
We're just teasing.
So that there's a total project cost of 83,700,000. That 83,700,000 is going to be paid with 73 million in debt, which is 42 of the GO notes, bonds, and 31.6 of the boy. I spend my life editing their documents. The certificate of participation, they are not revenue bonds, and that's may sound like not much of a distinction, but it really is. We're not authorized to issue revenue bonds. We've told them that many times. So that'll get fixed next time. So anyway, that we have the 73 million in debt plus the 10 million that we're putting up, the 8 million from the original letter of conditions plus the 2 million for the financing on the interim financing on the COP. So that's what they're trying to do, but there's no way they can do it anymore. And then we've asked and asked and asked, because Seneca's paid all of that construction design there, that $3.4 million. And, you know, they made it red, but the budget item is black. So go figure. Yeah. So we're trying to work through this, you know, because this is not a traditional funding project, because we had to pay for, again, those design items that the USDA traditionally likes to pay for with their debt, but they're not going to reimburse us for that and then have us pay all the other stuff, which would be really cool. So, you know, red and black ain't going to be real smooth here.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, just the second page real fast. So what we have to do is that behind the pay request, we go into our budget items, and, you know, Donna's got this detailed, great budget that we can really reference. And so what it does is it really helps when we do pay requests to the USDA, because they can go right to this item. They can look what our budget is. They can look how much left, you know, and say, yep, we're still good, and it's in the budget, and everything's cool. And it makes their processing go really fast. So this is just a little more detail of each of the line items, like administrative and legal line A. And then it all totals down. And in this case, it was all, again, just the issuance stuff. And so you can see what we paid out to everybody.
So the change made the contingency and construction, that's just because we didn't dip into those categories?
Did you just, Jerry, ask if the changes that we've made were just to the category?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I was just asking about section J and K. That's just gonna reflect whatever it is that's impacted as of the submittal of this form for that period of time, not a running total. The running total is just gonna be on the first page, correct?
Right, yeah, you'll have to go to the individual pay request of this document, this specific one here, to see what all it was. This document will just be specific to the current request.
Okay, thank you.
But the JK on a total line item will show you previous requests, current requests, total date, and budget, so. That's kind of. And then, you know, just, Brian, just maybe can just go to the first page. And then what we do is there's varying degrees of support and information that we put behind, you know, whether it's invoices or agreements to pay certain things or whatever it may be. The progress payment request by the general contractor, you'll see that in the August request that's getting paid now. And then in future requests. And that's it.
Board member, any questions?
No, but thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Very detailed.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. So it's not on the agenda, but I just have a couple items that I want to run by you. We'll have a cash flow analysis for you all at the October board meeting. We have the cash flow analysis. The issue at hand is because of multiple things that have happened, mainly relating to the timing and the size of our intergovernmental transfers for the rate range program, well, mainly the rate range program, and the HQAF program, which is, you know, to our benefit, has grown in size since we last talked, yay? That we're going to have a very significant dip in our days cash on hand. And the fact that these intergovernmental transfers would have normally already have happened here in September, and we'd be getting our money before the end of the calendar year. Now the rate range is going to be at the end of November. HQAF is going to be in December. So we're going to have a couple more months than originally of our negative cash flow operations, which is the way we go. And then the supplemental payments plug the holes. So we're looking at alternatives to, you know, reduce the exposure or risk of that dip. And we just don't have anything formal at this point, but we'll be bringing you something from the October meeting, for the October meeting. So any questions about that or?
Thank you for that update, Steve. Questions, comments, board members?
Last thing, Partnership Health Plan, their financial and operational leadership is doing a rural tour this week. They're going to hit all of the spots, mayors, and Alturas and Surprise Valley, and they'll be here at Seneca midday on Friday. So as we were talking earlier, it's just another demonstration of partnership's commitment to be connected to their provider, contracted providers. And so it's a great thing. And this was arranged by the District Hospital Leadership Forum Group and Steve Clark and Associates, the group that did the IGT enhancement for us. So that's it's always good to see them. They always come with money. So or good news, rarely bad news, those guys. So that's it. Questions or comments or anything, and move on.
It's all great. And sounds good, Steve. Thank you. And we really appreciate your detailed reporting because it really helps give us a clear view of where we are.
Okay, glad I can do it.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we don't need to approve anything for this item. Let's move on to number 10, policies and procedures. board members, any questions, comments? Asked about policies and procedures. Okay, hearing none, I will accept the motion to approve them as they've been presented. I move approval for the second. Second. Thank you. All in favor, Shelley? Aye. Tony?
Aye.
Mary? Aye. Rich? Aye. That's the item for 11, Santa Cruz Foundation report. Chelsea, are you still on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so foundation report, we're still waiting on 501c3 status. Sean touched on that. We do have a more positive update, so that's good. Auxiliary did approve accepting funds through their 501c3 as far as their board goes. They presented us with an MOU. I am checking with legal to make sure everything would work, okay? And then if legal says it's okay, we're gonna present it to the district board and let everybody look at it to make sure it would work to be able to accept funds until we get our 501c3. Other than that, we're continuing with our just general tasks. We sent out an introduction announcement earlier or last week, and then this week our appeals letter will be going to the printers, and that should be going out the very beginning of October. Any questions?
For you, remember, Chelsea?
Nope.
Great work, Chelsea. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Let's move on to number 12, Mutual Access Hospital Skilled Nursing Facility. One, anyone?
Yes. Sean and Steve went into this in depth. The only thing I have to just clarify, a couple things that we are working for the phasing that Sean was referencing for the increment 1 pad and the footings, and just trying to make a recommendation around that, is that we're looking for the contractor to provide us some schedule analysis that can help with that decision. So working with them to get that so that we understand risk and reward, and then how they would protect the pad if we weren't to, well, regardless, how they're going to protect the pad, both for increments 1 and 2, that 2 being the SNF, 1 being the critical access hospital. So just know that we're working through the details and hoping to present to you all the risk versus reward on that. As far as the fill, we will be bringing that information to the civil engineer as well. The need to potentially bring in fill to get the site with the amount of dirt that they need. We'll be working with the civil engineer to see if there are any alternatives to that. But not dismissing that is where we will land, but we will just do some due diligence to make sure that there aren't any alternatives. And then lastly, the payment of subs that came up. I wanted to make sure all know that there is a payment bond that would cover to cover the hospital to make sure that the subs and suppliers are being paid. That's what that payment bond is for. Additionally, we are tracking both conditional lien releases and unconditional lien releases for the when we're getting the pay applications from the general contractor, so that any subcontractor or supplier that has filed a preliminary notice would have to be submitting invoices and associated lien releases, conditional at the time of invoice, unconditional at the time that they've been paid. So we'll be tracking those. So just to give some level of comfort that all that is provides the protections to the hospital against subs not being paid, subs and suppliers not being paid. Other than that, I think the report covers it, unless anyone has any questions.
I just wanted to say the event that we had last week with all of our project team was such an event. And very impressed with his quality of her. It was really, I mean,
I agree, definitely.
yeah, it was really good. Bet. We had what, 40 people?
Yeah, and we've had a lot of back channel communication, people that have come and they found it very helpful.
Right, and we have people as far as
Canada.
So it was really, really done with the sales and coordinated, that's a great job of posting. So it's only makes really.
And we,
Thank you. Go ahead, Donna.
I'm sorry, on that note, we are getting some what we call plus deltas from the team. So that if it's of interest to the board, we can help do a presentation as to how that event went and how we are going to continue to implement that if that's of interest at future board meetings.
I think that'd be interesting. Thank you, Donna.
Of course.
Any other questions for Donna? Comments? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Donna.
With that, let's move us into our medical staff report. We have some initial appointments and some new appointments. Got a motion to approve the appointments as listed.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, Rich?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Sherry? Aye. Ken? Aye. I'll vote aye. And with that, that moves us into our closed session. All right, we're in closed session, board gave direction to legal counsel, vote to approve. Karen, Sherry, Rich, Shelley, and Gary. And, future board meeting agenda topics, and then add new hospital names for next month's agenda. Anyone have anything else you want to make sure gets added? Okay, so our next regular board meeting will be October 31st, Halloween. Shirley asked if we were dressing up, I said I had no idea, but. She was hoping they passed me a candy.
Give it direction to our,
You're
leader, so for us.
It's like, just don't give me like little go peep or something. Cool.
Trick or treaters, maybe we should have candy here just in case. And then if no one get to eat the candy. Alright, so with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.